Okay, so I'm here in New York, downtown Manhattan, 9th and 39th near Hudson River, near Hudson Yards. And I heard the news this morning that Marine Le Pen has won some French snap elections, so she's gaining some power there with her 28-year-old running mate or something. I don't know much about it, but I do know that France has some major influence in European politics. They seem to be, well, Macron was leading kind of the way for Europe's offensive position toward Russia, or defensive position of Ukraine, depending on how you look at it. So this is an article that was kind of featured on the Wikipedia page of Marine Le Pen and her views on America and NATO and Ukraine. So I'll go ahead and read this because I think it's worth a read. And this is December 5th, 2014. Western Ukraine now openly vassalized by Washington. National Front Press, and this is after Maidan Revolution, Orange Revolution, whatever you want to call it. It's pertaining to this. Okay. National Front press release. The new government of Ukraine is now the clear image of those who have taken the destiny of this country in hand. It is foreign. Under the guise of integrating the best international skills, President Petro Poroshenko has in fact entrusted the finances of his country to an American, its economy to a Lithuanian, its health to a Georgian. Natalie Jaresko, an American of Ukrainian origin who worked for the U.S. State Department and for a Ukrainian investment fund financed by the U.S. Congress, was appointed Minister of Finance last Tuesday. Aivaras Abramovičius is a Lithuanian co-director of a Swedish investment fund, becomes Minister of Economy, while the Georgian Alexander Kvitashvili, who was Minister of Health in Georgia, inherits the same portfolio in Ukraine. There's exclamation point. Sorry, this is a side tangent. Exclamation point. So somehow, why is it that in European countries there's such a ethno-spiritual thing to every country? Like, oh, like UK, oh, you have this Indian guy running in politics. In Ukraine you have a Georgian health minister. You have a Swedish or a Lithuanian minister of economy. Like, it's kind of I'm just used to being an American, where we're completely open to any background, choosing whichever position you want, right? And I can understand if you're like, I can understand having a Russian U.S. president in 2024. That might be a little much if they're supporting Ukraine, or sorry, if they're supporting Russia, or even a Ukrainian president that's supporting Ukraine. I guess the politics of that is a little bit weird, but I digress. Well, no, I mean, the point is, Europe and just the rest of the world just seems to be much more nationalistic, whereas the US is completely multicultural, and it seems to work for us, and it doesn't seem to work for Europe. Anyway, where was I? Okay, certainly the majority of portfolios remain in the hands of Ukrainians. But this simple fact says a lot about the degree of penetration of the United States and its Eastern European allies into Ukrainian political power. very largely influenced by the weight of their own Ukrainian and Polish minorities, which play a key role in the political balances of certain American states, but also Ontario and Canada. The United States has largely taken control of Western Ukraine with the aim of NATOizing a country that the American geopolitician Zbigniew Brzezinski described in his famous Grand Chessboard 1997 as the pivot of Eurasian geopolitics capable of cutting Russia off from Europe and pushing it towards China. France and Germany, which have shown themselves to be weak in the face of the anti-Russian activism of certain Eastern countries, especially the Baltic countries and Poland, will therefore have let any possibility of compromise with Russia slip away. Ukraine is now moving rapidly towards an irremediable partition, especially since the Ukrainian government's choice to completely isolate the Donbass East is only accelerating the divorce. By ordering their administrations to block the payment of pensions and salaries of civil servants, schools, hospitals in the rebel territories, and the central bank of Kyiv to disconnect the banks of Donetsk and Luhansk, whose ATMs are no longer working. President Poroshenko and his Prime Minister Yatsenyuk are leaving no other possible perspective to the population of the east of the country than to build its future with Russia. Okay, that's a short article. This is something I haven't really heard of much. I don't hear a lot about the European right. The European right is, I guess, popular in Hungary, France. There's the AfD in Germany. Who else is kind of leaning right these days? Poland, maybe? Italy. So I wonder what those folks have to say about this. So, alright, going back to so again, this one. So Ukraine is now moving rapidly towards an irremediable partition. Ordering their administrations to block the payments of pensions and salaries to civil servants, schools, hospitals, and the rebel territories. Well, if they've rebelled, if they're rebelling, should they receive these benefits from the government? It seems kind of counterintuitive. I can understand protesting, but armed rebellion to separate themselves. I mean, so this is also, 9 months after, or when was the Maidan? January? Or when was the Maidan of, Maidan Revolution 2014? Revolution of Dignity. So this is 10 months after, or 9 months after the invasion of Crimea. Oh no, Kyiv didn't send pensions to folks that were rebelling and trying to secede from their country and join hostile Russia. Oh, that's so weird. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's pretty strange. So yeah, that's where they're at. I just wanted to go over that because I thought that was interesting. I'm interested in Le Pen's orientation towards Russia. Oh, what is this? Russian love. 2 days ago, Russia cheers Marine Le Pen's national rally and French election. Putin's back. Russia backs. Far right, yeah. We know this. But what is this? What is this? $6 million Russian loan. It's 2023. Yeah, what does far right mean for France? Political scientists in France call it far right because it really is far right. If you study its program, the reconstructed far right, she says. Obsessively nativist, anti-immigration, also obsessively discussing what it is to be French. What is it to be French? How much is a French identity card? No, I mean it's like or let's even search France, Russia. It's obviously Russian-linked cyber campaigns put a bullseye on France. So cybersecurity experts and French officials say Russian disinformation campaigns against France are zeroing in on legislative elections. So, and Le Pen is only, as far as I understand, in the legislative and not. So Macron is still in power. So let's see, let's add Macron to this. What is going on over there? No, Macron is a centrist, so at this point, I mean, it's very strange. I heard this morning that Macron did this snap election to give these folks power so that they flounder it, so that they fuck up, so that they look weak. I think there's a really interesting thing going on there. So we can look further into this later, but I just wanted to look into this. Thought it was interesting. Okay, stopping.
President Biden says he is committed to staying in the race and...
Alright, so I wanted to cover this as I want to listen to this, and I've got an hour. I should probably go to bed soon. I still have a half a beer. I'm in New York. It's loud as fuck through the windows. That's just what it is here. I kind of hate. I don't hate New York, but it's fucking loud and. It's loud. People are obnoxious. Some people are obnoxious. It's a nice place with some fucktards. All right. Anyway.
Good evening, everyone, on this momentous evening. I'm Juju Chang. Thanks so much for streaming with us. Tonight, ABC News has an exclusive interview with President Joe Biden. Our George Stephanopoulos sat down with the president for his first televised interview since that poor debate performance against Donald Trump. President Biden says he is committed to staying in the race and confident that he will prevail and beat Donald Trump. The president was directly...
All right. For the record, I don't think that Biden is unfit to be president because he slurs some words sometimes. I slur my words all the time. I am 36 years old. I've probably smoked too much pot in my life, but for the most part, I don't think intelligence has to do with verbal communication. There's a block that happens between what's going on in your thought patterns and how to formulate those ideas coherently into a sentence to be communicated. I understand that that's important, but I don't think that necessarily see, I'm doing it right now. There's a lot of distraction, dude, there's a lot going on in that man's mind, This man is balancing the outcomes of America. I understand, like, Trump, even Obama, Bush, all these motherfuckers bullshitted. Just straight up bullshitted. So I think at least Joe Biden is empathic and sincere enough to be honest, to be like, yeah, I got a lot of shit going on, I'm fucking old, but I have the experience, how many decades in the Senate, I know what the fuck is going on. So anyway, that's a priority, or that's like, before we get into this, I just wanted to make that statement.
Directly called on to answer for his faltering appearances and whether he still has the mental and physical fitness for another term in the White House. Our team is standing by, of course, for analysis, but first, let's get to the interview.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You say you were exhausted.
There's something going on with his eye. I don't know if that's always been like that. Like he's got this thing going on. It's kind of this, like, wincing a little bit, like, kind of like this look of pain and confusion and, yeah.
And I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
And did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
He does sound congested in the nose. So the cold seems like it makes sense, and it kind of makes sense that he hasn't been in the public eye. He's still recovering. He probably, when I sound like shit after a cold, I try to stay away from everybody. I try to not communicate, but it's just me.
I don't think I did, no.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look. The whole way I prepared, nobody's fault mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway.
He did say NASA Security Council, didn't he?
Way through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night. You've had some bad interviews once in a while. I can't remember any, but I'm sure you do.
I've had plenty. I guess the problem is here for a lot of Americans watching, as you've said, going back to 2020, watch me,
Yep.
To people who are concerned about your age. And, 50 million Americans watched that debate. It seemed to confirm fears they already had.
Well, look, after that debate, I did.
God, can you imagine the fucking pressure? I mean, it's almost, I'm not saying 7 billion people know who Joe Biden is, I'd say there's probably 4 billion people that are over 18 in the world. There's, you know, maybe 1 billion people that speak English, maybe. And out of that 1 billion people, how many of these motherfuckers actually like Biden? Let's say maybe 300 million people like Biden out of the entire world. Meanwhile, you got fucking Russia declaring war on Europe. Everybody's blaming Biden for every problem in America. Dude, that's like severe pressure. And then put on top of that, like, we're practically gonna impeach you because you made some slips of the tongue, like you said some words incorrectly, or you kind of trailed off in the debate a little bit when you were debating a guy who is a felon who's running for president who lied, like he said, 28 times during the debate. I mean, Trump literally just, his policy is lie. Like, his entire political strategy is a lie. I mean, when was the last American president? I don't want to say Bush. Bush lied a lot, maybe. Not nearly as much as Trump has lied. But yeah, I just was speaking on the absolute pressure of that on top of, man, like, just getting grilled for, like, dude, I feel like shit when people are like, dude, you forgot to lock, like, my roommate. Oh, dude, you forgot to lock the door last night. What were you thinking? I was like, oh, yeah, I was kind of drunk. I forgot to lock the door. Like, and that feels like shit. Like, oh, man, I lost my fucking mind. But this is a whole nother level of pressure. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Unless we have like, do you really want somebody, like, I always say, man, you don't want somebody too smart in that position. Because you're going to be on some Machiavellian shit. And maybe Machiavellian stuff is good to defend America, but not to exploit America like Mr. Trump. Anyway, good thing Mr. Trump isn't very smart.
They did 10 major events in a row, including till 2 o'clock in the morning after that debate. I did events in North Carolina. I did events in Georgia. Did events like this today. Large crowds, overwhelming response, no slipping. And so I just had a bad night. I don't know why.
And how quickly did it come to you that you were having that bad night?
Well, it came to me as having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even though they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it distract me. I'm not blaming it on that. But I realized that I just wasn't in control.
But part of the other concern is that this seems to have fit into a pattern of decline that has been reported on recently. New York Times had a headline on July 2nd, Biden's lapses are said to be increasingly common and worrisome. Here's what they...
Dude, that is so brutal. But I understand, like, that just takes some humility, man. Like, that takes some serious humility to be the fucking president. And to be like, hey, man, everybody thinks that you're coming down with some dementia. Like, we don't think you're good enough anymore. Like, your heart, I'm sure his heart is just getting ripped out. Not that, like, we should really care about his ego. I mean, we should, but we shouldn't. Like, may the best man have the job, but, like, you're not helping. You're not, like, America is not helping Biden right now. We gotta support Biden. And not rip his fucking heart out like this.
Here's what they wrote. People who have spent time with President Biden over the last few months or so said the lapses appear to have grown more frequent, more pronounced, and after Thursday's debate, more worrisome. By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal.
Look at there's just the sad look on his face, man.
Are you the same man today that you were when you took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes. I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition. I was also the guy that expanded NATO. I was also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Today, just announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's ever taken on. I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one said I could beat them. I took on all the things we said we got done. We were told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do 3 things. Restore some decency to the office, restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics built from the middle out and the bottom up, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that work over the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night, bad run. But
look, I've been in politics for 50,000 fucking years, and my son has fucking nearly tarnished my reputation because he's an asshole. Trump absolutely fucked me. Putin's fucking me. Every right-wing European is fucking me. Every magtard in this fucking country is fucking me. And it cost me one bad night. And I think, honestly, I don't know if that stuff's related. I think he just had a bad night. I think he just had a bad cold. And the Democrats are fucking ready to slit his throat and throw him in the ground over it, which is really fucked up.
But, George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers, that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities. This next term, I'm going to make sure we have straighten out the tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, where we're in a position where we have child care and elder care, free up, and all these things. The one thing I'm proudest of is, remember when my economic plan was put forward, a lot of the mainstream economists said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? You now have 16 Nobel laureates, 16 of them in economics, saying that Biden's next term would be, based on what he wants to do, enormous success. Trump's plan would cause a recession, would significantly increase inflation. I've made great progress, and that's what I plan on doing, and we can do this.
I understand that.
Look, Biden has a stutter. I know what it's like to have a stutter. I've had, I have a speaking condition that I've had my entire life. I remember when I was a kid, if the teacher called on me, I would choke up. I could not speak. If any pressure was put on me. You ask people that I'm around, they all think I'm quiet and calm. I'm like a calm dude, I'm like a rock. In all honesty, I just suck at putting thoughts into sentences. I can do it now because I'm alone here. And, it's just me and this computer. And I'm not saying that public speaking isn't a good skill to have for being a president. It absolutely is vital, but everyone has their fortes, and I think that policy is Biden's forte. kind of like he's hallucinating now.
And I'm not disputing that. What I'm asking you is about your personal situation. Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
Can I run 110 flat? No. But I'm still in good shape.
Are you more frail?
No.
I know you
Come
spoke.
keep my schedule.
I know you spoke with your doctor after the debate. What did he say?
He said, he just looked at me and said, "You're exhausted." I said, "Look, I have medical doctors travel me everywhere, every president does, as you know. Medical doctors, some of the best in the world, travel me everywhere I go. I have an ongoing assessment of what I'm doing. And they don't hesitate to tell me if they think there's something wrong."
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been at Walter Reed for my physicals. Yes, the answer is
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
no one said I.
Dude, the fucking look. All right, I do get Biden now. It's just like, this is Biden's look. Like, why are you asking me all these fucking questions? All right.
Had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. Not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with Prime Minister anyway, I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to, in Europe, with regard to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. Every day, there's no day I go through, there are not those decisions I have to make every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me there's a lot of time left in this campaign. It's over 125 days.
So
I'll make a decision.
The right answer right now is no, you don't want to do that right now.
No, I've already done it.
You talked a lot about your successes at the beginning of this interview, and I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to debate that. But as you know, elections are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought could happen. I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. For example, when I decided we used to have 40% computer chip, we invented the chip, that little chip, the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40%, we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in the plane against the advice of everybody, and I fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars being invested in the United States, making us back in a position where we're going to own that industry again. We have, anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff.
But all the...
Dark Brandon strikes. Rewind that. Listen to that again. Continue on.
I guess my point is, all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look, I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level. We're on our way. We're on our way. And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity, you know, the next president of the United States, it's not just about whether he or she knows what they're doing. It's not about a conglomerate of people making decisions. It's about the character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine whether or not this Constitution is employed the right way.
And we should note that ABC News offered Donald Trump the same opportunity for a one-on-one interview, and he declined. We'll have more of George Stephanopoulos' exclusive interview with President Biden in just 60 seconds. Stay with us.
Anybody else think that the Democrats are absolutely just throwing this man under the bus? For what? For what? Brianna Wu, let me call you out. For what? You think Biden's gonna lose to the compulsive liar, rapist, felon, orange man who can't complete a sentence without going on a tangent? Do you really think that America is mostly... I think that's what it is. You fear that America is mostly evil, mostly fascistic, mostly authoritarian, mostly degenerate, and so that you have to prop up... I don't even know. Who's your replacement pick again? I mean, I understand Kamala, but look, wait until Biden's doctors say, you know, hey bro, you gotta step down, or wait for like an actual... your opinion on like his debate performance or whatever. You know, who knows what the fuck happened? But like, you're basing... Anyway, in the words of Biden. But anyway.
This exclusive interview with President Joe Biden.
Let me ask you a tougher, more personal question. Are you sure you're being honest with yourself when you say you have the mental and physical capacity to serve another 4 years?
Yes, I am, because, George, the last thing I want to do is not be able to meet that. I think, as some of the senior economists and senior foreign policy specialists say, if I stop now, I'd go down in history as a pretty successful president. No one thought I could get done what we got done.
But are you being honest with yourself as well about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You say that, and let me challenge you.
Sure.
Because you were close, but behind going into the debate. You're further behind now, by any measure. It's been a two-man race for several months. Inflation has come down. In those last few months, he's become a convicted felon. Yet you're still falling further behind.
You guys keep saying that. George, you know polling better than anybody. Do you think polling data is accurate as it used to be?
I don't think so, but I think when you look at all of the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground states. And one of the other key factors there is it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are.
Great.
Well, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020. I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2020, the red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said, that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done. They said in 2023, all the tough races, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race, and your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll...
I just want to remark on ABC's... God, I mean, who did the AV, okay? ABC, did you do the AV? Is it your shoddy mic? Is it your out of focus camera? Is the cameraman high? Like, what is, like, do you not see the focus? Are you checking what are you doing? And, yeah, totally unprofessional.
Last poll I saw was at about 36%.
And I'm not just picking on him. I do AV for a living, and look, this shot's good, but like, there was some stuff going on. Whatever.
The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020. Wouldn't a clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Like, the Boca is way too extreme. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Not when you're running against a pathological liar. Not when he hadn't been challenged in a way that he's about to be challenged. Not when people...
You've had months to challenge him.
Oh, I sure had months, but I was also doing a hell of a lot of other things, like wars around the world, like keeping NATO together, like working anyway. But look,
Do you really believe you're not behind right now?
I think it's all pollsters I talk to tell me it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. And when I'm behind, there's only one poll I'm really far behind: CBS poll and NBC. And
New York Times and NBC both have you about 6 points behind in the popular vote.
That's exactly right. New York Times had me behind before anything having to do with this race. Had me behind 10 points. 10 points had me behind. Nothing's changed substantially in the debate, the New York Times poll.
Just when you look at the reality, though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the Electoral
By
College.
7 million votes.
Yes, but you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
You know, the heart of your case against Donald Trump is that he's only out for himself, putting his personal interest ahead of the national interest. How do you respond to critics who say that by staying in the race, you're doing the same thing?
Oh, come on. Well, I don't think those critics know what they're talking about.
They're just wrong?
It's wrong. Look, Trump is a pathological liar. Trump is, he is. Have you ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else, not him? You can't answer, I know.
I've questioned him and his allies as persistently as any journalist has.
No, I know you have. I'm not being critical.
Yeah.
I'm not being critical. But look, I mean, the man is a congenital liar. As I said, they pointed out in that debate he lied 28 times the times, or whatever number, over 20 times.
Wait, congenital or congenial? I don't know congenital. I'm gonna look that up. Okay, he's been from birth. He's lied since the days. Okay. Man, it's fucking obnoxious outside.
Time. Talk about how good his economy was, how he brought down inflation, how this is a guy who, unlike only other president other than him, is Hoover, lost more jobs than he created. This is a guy who told us to put bleach in our arms to deal with COVID, when over a million people died. This is a guy who talks about wanting to get rid of the healthcare provisions we put in place. This is a guy who wants to give the power back to big pharma to be able to charge exorbitant prices for drugs. This is a guy who wants to undo every single thing I've done. Every single thing.
I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race. But have you convinced yourself that only you can defeat him?
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, I mean, on a more practical level, Washington Post just reported in the last hour that Senator Mark Warner is assembling a group of senators together to try and convince you to stand down because they don't think you can win.
Well, Mark is a good man. We've never had that. He also tried to get the nomination too. Mark's not Mark and I have a different perspective. I respect him.
And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi come down and say, we're worried that if you stay in the race, we're going to lose the House and the Senate, how will you respond?
I go into detail with them. I've spoken to all of them in detail, including Jim Clyburn. Every one of them. They all said I should stay in the race. Stay in the race. None of the people said I should leave.
But if they do?
Well, it's like, they're not going to do that.
You're sure?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Look.
What is this line of questioning? Like, he's trying to hit his head. I guess he's just trying to hit him from every angle, but like, what are the validities of this criticism? Like, I mean, it's literally just he had, he kind of mumbles sometimes. He has a stutter sometimes. Like, everything that he's listed, that he's done, all the policies that he's pushed through, all the stuff that he's accomplished in 4 years, compared to what Trump has accomplished in the opposite. Like the problem here is not Biden. The problem here is the deception of, I don't want to say our media, but I would say our alternative media. The power of the alternative media, which I understand is free press, but like the free press, the First Amendment is being weaponized against the United States at this era, and I guess it always has been, but it's the double-edged sword of that amendment. But like, it is being weaponized because we're at war. So I mean, like, the right wing are completely deluded, if not demented, and the far left are deluded and demented, and this is all some political attack, whether it's Gaza, Russian misinformation, or like that's what he's fighting. We're fighting this radical Islamization, and I don't want to say like I'm not. And like even Biden's been like, look, bro, let him. Biden sees both sides on the Israel-Palestine thing. He's not going in there and be like, hey, Netanyahu, blast them. Like, Blinken has been like, yo, you have to be strategic with Hamas. You cannot be blowing shit up left and right like you're doing. And I think Biden's been saying the same thing. What does Trump want to do? And with Ukraine, what's Trump want to do? What do the far left want Ukraine to do? Or the U.S. to do with Ukraine? So, this is where we're at. Democrats got to win. Biden has been running, steering this ship. He knows, look, everybody says he's losing his mind, dementia, and all this stuff. Dude knows the inner workings of this government better than anybody else. Most likely better than Kamala. Most likely better than anybody that they're going to try to replace him with. They're talking about RFK Jr., brainworms, okay? Kamala Harris, do not come. What else? Who else is it? Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom. Great record in California. So yeah, I mean, Biden's who we have. It's gonna be by the grace of God, you know, like, we gotta have a little bit of faith here. I'm not religious, but we gotta have some faith.
I mean, if the Lord Almighty came down and said, Joe, get out of the race, I get out of the race, the Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals, George,
But it's not that hypothetical anymore. I grant that they have not requested the meeting, but it's been reported.
I've met with them. I've met with a lot of these people. I've talked with.
Not to mention, sorry to go on another tirade, but like, not to mention, like, dude, Biden's heart has to be broken, and he's still defending himself. And he's still convincing everybody around him that he's good. Like, dude, the man has virility. More confidence than I've ever known, more confidence than I've known in anyone.
Talk with them regularly. I had an hour conversation with Akeem. I had more time than that with Jim Clyburn. I spent time with many hours off and on the last little bit with Chuck Schumer. It's not like I had all the governors.
I agree that the Lord Almighty is not going to come down, but if you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to happen.
What's your plan to turn the campaign around?
You saw it today. How many people do you draw crowds like I drew today? You find me any more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
You can draw a big crowd, but what does he say? Who's he have? I'm the guy supposedly in trouble. We raised $38 million within 4 days after this. We have over 1 million individual contributors. That's less than $200. I've not seen what you're proposing.
You haven't seen the fall off in the polls. You haven't seen the reports of discontent in the Democratic Party, House Democrats, Senate Democrats.
I've seen it from the press.
So much to analyze. And so for more insight on this interview, we're joined now by contributing political correspondent.
Thanks, Juju. I am gonna bail and go to sleep. It's been fun. Those are my words. This is how I feel. Hopefully it wasn't so terrible. Hopefully you feel the same way. I'm sharing this. Hopefully so you don't feel alone in your frustration. And for my support to the Democratic Party during this election, one of the most important elections I've ever participated in. It's literally just my one vote and the conversations that I'll have along the way from now until the end of the year. Holy fuck, okay? Holy fuck. Sorry, Mom. Holy fuck. Okay? If you're in New York, you don't need to honk at everything, okay? Maybe stop drinking, maybe stop doing drugs. These are just, pro tips, to improve your life, okay? That's all I got.